welcome to a quick discussion of Freedom Planet 2. Since this game finally got a release window of spring 2022, I decided to finally play the original. I actually have a lot to talk about the original Freedom Planet, but I also wanted to talk about my hopes for Freedom Planet 2. This is the demo version, specifically version 1.0.7, that is free to download from the official website or from Steam. This demo has 4 playable characters, the original 3 characters of Lilac the Dragon, Carol the Wildcat, and Milla the Hound, along with the new character of Nira the Frost Knight. Admittedly, I didn't really play the other characters outside of Lilac, so for this quick look at the demo, we will be playing as Lilac. So there are the controls, they're basically the same, but there's an additional guard move that wasn't in the original Freedom Planet. There are also more difficulty options. The original game did have some difficulty options, but one thing that's actually kind of neat is there's a custom difficulty, where you can basically choose different attributes. So if you want a specific kind of difficulty tailored to your skill set, that might be a good option. As someone who definitely struggled a bit with the original, that's nice to see. For this quick look, we will be sticking with normal mode though. And there's one stage in the demo, and that is Dragon Valley. So Freedom Planet is an indie game that is heavily inspired by Sonic, to put it mildly. It actually started as a Sonic fan game, but the developers eventually made it an original IP because they were feeling a bit too limited by making it a Sonic fan game, if I recall correctly. Freedom Planet was released around 2014, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty sure it's available on most platforms nowadays. I have it on Steam, but I actually finished the Switch version because I actually found the limited run at a Best Buy a couple years ago. So yeah, I played through the Switch version recently, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. As a fan of 2D Sonic games, I definitely enjoyed the high-speed gameplay. The things I didn't enjoy about Freedom Planet were some of the other influences, because it wasn't only influenced by Sonic. Compared to Sonic, Freedom Planet has more of a combat focus, so the characters have different attacks and different special abilities. And again, this sequel adds in a guard ability for each character. And yeah, I definitely was a bit mixed on some of the combat aspects of the game, mainly because some of the bosses in Freedom Planet 1 took a long time to get through. I remember reading that another influence of the game was Gunstar Heroes, and as someone who has never played that game, but is aware of how difficult that game is, and some of the bosses in that game, I can definitely see the influence. One of the bosses in particular is actually somewhat reminiscent of a Gunstar Heroes boss. Yeah, even though I wasn't super sold on some of the combat aspects of the game, in all fairness, I also stuck with the normal difficulty. I didn't lower it to easy or anything, because I wanted to see if I could get through it, and the life system is actually pretty generous, even though there are lives, including in the sequel. It seems like there's a life system based on the life counter in the top middle. It's actually really generous. Basically, if you run out of lives, it's actually really easygoing in terms of like putting you back where you were. So, for example, I died a lot of times to the final boss, and every time I used a continue, and it seems there are unlimited continues, it would basically put me on the final phase of the final boss, so I didn't really lose that much time. I was really worried about the life system, but then when I saw that the checkpoints count for the lives, it got a lot less scary. But it also just kind of makes the life system feel a little bit pointless, so I'm actually surprised they left that in. I actually wonder if the checkpoints in Freedom Planet 2 are going to be as generous, because I feel like that makes it too easy, actually. I expected to have to like start a stage over, not be able to start from an exact phase of a boss fight. So yeah, I also can't really talk about the other characters because I didn't really play them in the first game, so I don't really know how much has changed about their movesets for this game. But Lilac basically plays the same as she does in Freedom Planet 1. And I actually do like the overall like controls, but one thing I kind of don't know how to feel about is actually what is basically the spin dash, which is basically like a special move for Lilac specifically. One nice thing is it can actually be used diagonally into the air, but it actually uses up a bit of the meter below the health bar, so you can't like, you know, spam spin dashes basically. You have to kind of let it recharge first, which can be a little bit slow, especially if you like whiff a jump, which I definitely did quite a bit in the first game. Like in Sonic, you also have a ton of optional routes. Typically, higher routes are faster and have more secrets, lower routes are slower. So yeah, it definitely has a lot of Sonic influence, and I do like that. In general, I do feel like it's a nice evolution of a lot of the concepts in Sonic. So like you have games like Sonic Mania that are very much like nostalgic throwback type games. But Freedom Planet is sort of like, it's very unique. Even though it's heavily influenced by Sonic, it has a lot of its own identity, and I actually really like that. It doesn't entirely feel like Sonic-like. Like secret placements and things definitely don't fall into all the usual like tropes of Sonic games, even though I do feel like generally higher routes are better, like in Sonic. The health system is also interesting, especially since the game is more combat oriented. It definitely makes sense to have like a health bar. I do feel like in the first game, the health bar, or the health system, is a little bit unbalanced at times because there aren't a lot of iframes from any attacks, or invincibility frames. So basically what could often happen in the first game is you could take damage, and then a boss will just be able to continue to attack. So for example, like if a boss has a continuous attack, you'll just basically take every hit of that attack and lose like all of your health in one go. That's one thing I kind of hope they improve in the sequel, is slightly longer invincibility frames, just to give you a little bit more of a fighting chance against certain bosses, or at least on the lower difficulties, like change the duration of invincibility frames, just because on normal in Freedom Planet 1 I definitely found myself getting comboed, like to the point of going from like almost full health to like 1 hit point in like 1 attack. So again, I do hope they improve that a little bit, but that's obviously for me a fairly subjective issue because I am not particularly good at the combat side of these types of games. In general, it seems like most people were okay with the difficulty, so yeah, it might just be a personal preference thing. But again, there being a custom difficulty option, I hope there are options for things like that, to make it more accessible. I'm kind of taking my time in the stage because it is Sonic inspired, so I am trying to like explore as much as I can of the stage. That's the boss, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. One nice thing about Freedom Planet is like storytelling within stages, where you basically have like, you know, mini bosses and bosses kind of show up like in the background occasionally as you're like running through. So it kind of gives you some context of like the boss you'll be fighting at the end of stages. Another difference from actual Sonic games is the structure of the stages. So instead of like 2 acts, we basically just have one really long act, and in a lot of cases, they're really long. Like some of the acts in Freedom Planet 1 took me like 15-20 minutes or so. So yeah, they're basically like, it's sort of like the length of a zone in Sonic, but not divided into separate acts. Another difference is that it seems like more bosses will have health bars. If I'm not mistaken, in Freedom Planet 1, only a handful of bosses actually had health bars. Oh yeah, another cool feature is that Lilac's like jump spin can actually deal damage. This is actually really cool in the original. I actually used it to attack enemies quite a bit because there's often a safer option than actually attacking. I should actually try to guard more. She also has a little dash move too after guarding. I'm trying to remember if that deals damage or not. I did play a little bit of the demo. I think that does deal damage, yeah. Also the dash deals a ton of damage too. So yeah, having health bars for bosses and like defensive options, I do feel like that will alleviate some of my issues with the original game's combat. Even then I'm taking a lot of damage. There's also a revive system where like if you die, you can actually like press specific buttons to like revive yourself once, so you don't have to like restart from the beginning of the boss fight. So yeah, there are a ton of little small changes that feel like they're going to alleviate a lot of my issues with the original game's difficulty. And that's the boss. So it's not a terribly long demo, but there are 4 characters, so there is some replay value to the demo. I think we're going to at least do part of another run, at least, as the new character, Nira. And let's stick with the normal difficulty. So one nice thing in the original Freedom Planet is, in addition to having multiple characters with different playstyles, in the original, from what I gathered, the characters would actually go through different stages. So there is some incentive to actually play through the stages with multiple characters. So yeah, it is cool that in addition to having different abilities, yeah, you will see different stages. I haven't actually done that yet. I only saw a level list that had stages listed only for like Carol or Mila. I don't know how it's supposed to be said. There's voice acting, by the way, and a full story mode. But in Freedom Planet 1, and I assume that's also going to be the case for 2, you can basically treat it like a story-driven game or like a Sonic game. Basically, there's a story mode where you have like full cutscenes and everything, and then there's like a traditional level mode where you basically just go through level to level without all the exposition. The story is a slightly divisive point about Freedom Planet. Some people like the story, a lot of people generally don't care for it. I was kind of neutral on the story, to be honest. I kind of tuned out a lot of it, but it was still not terrible from what I remember. My main concern is, like, from what I've heard, a lot of the other characters, or the other 2 characters in Freedom Planet 1 are generally slightly harder to play as, and as someone who struggled quite a bit with Lilac's story, I am a little concerned that the other characters might be a little too difficult. And it is cool that they are adding in another playable character with a very distinct moveset from what I can tell from the other characters. So we have, like, it feels like Nira is a little bit more, I'm trying to figure out the word, actually. Like, with her spear attack, it's a little bit less mobile than Lilac's attacks, which kind of feel like they're more designed to be used, like, in motion. But, like, with Nira, she has, like, this projectile move that you can't use while, like, running. So, her attack set does feel a little bit more stationary. But yeah, it is interesting having different playstyles for characters. Last time I think we went through the upper route, so let's go towards the lower route this time. Never mind, that was actually really short. Basically, that's just like a shortcut, basically. It saves time to go over the top route. Yeah, having all these characters and different abilities does add some sense of replay value, but then you basically get into situations where it's like, I wish I was playing as a different character with a different ability. So for example, for Nira, her special ability is this little projectile. She doesn't have like the spin dash that Lilac has, so actually traversing the levels feels like it might be a little bit tougher, but kind of a nice spin on the same level. I'm not sure if the actual levels change for the most part. I think one level actually would change because of one of the bosses in Freedom Planet 1, but for the most part, I feel like the actual stages, outside of the specific stages for each character, I think in general, I feel like the stages are going to play out similarly for every character, so it's not like Knuckles and Sonic 3 and Mania, where like the stages themselves will actually change a whole lot. But again, I haven't actually played the other characters very much in Freedom Planet 1, so I'm not exactly well-versed on how different each route is beyond that. There are different levels for specific character routes. I do like having checkpoint times this time, for two reasons. One, it's a Sonic-style game, it's nice to know how fast you're going, and two, it's also nice to know when you've reached the checkpoint, so you don't have to kind of wonder if you're, checkpoint or not, which I feel like that was kind of a problem I had with the first game, where I kind of wasn't sure where the checkpoints were, and there were times where I'd die, and then be sent back way farther than I thought I should have been. Yeah, Nero definitely is more of an attacking-focused character, so I feel like the boss is going relatively well. Also, even the guards are different for characters. Like, Nero seems to put up a shield around her, and that trains the special gauge. So yeah, in general, I do feel like Freedom Planet is worth playing, even though I definitely found it a little bit too frustrating at times, just because I'm not used to that style of like Genesis game like Gunstar and other more challenging games. But it's still definitely a game I can recommend, especially because there are optional difficulty settings that I definitely could have used. And that's another run of the stage. So that was a quick look at the Freedom Planet 2 demo. I'm excited about the game, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the first game. I'm looking forward to the sequel, to see what they do differently, and also I'm curious to see how like feedback for the first game would influence the design of the second game, like for the gameplay design and also the story. And yeah, if it releases on time, given their original release window, it should be sometime in spring 2022. But on that note, I think that's all I had to say about this, so thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me next time for another discussion.